Hello and welcome to Okawa Book Club podcast. I'm your host, Hannah.
And I'm John.
Today and next month, we would like to have a discussion on Master Okawa's latest title, The Laws of Hell, It Follows, which will be released on May 1st. John, could you please read the preface?
Sure. Preface. A terrifying book is finally complete and ready for you. Never did I imagine that The Laws of Hell would be published in this 21st century world, this convenient and affluent world that is, at times, dominated by fear of a nuclear war or a coronavirus pandemic. Who can write such a book in this modern age? There is only one person here in a small oriental country, Japan. This is his 3,100th book. That's him, yes, the one who lives in the same age as you, yet has been sent from what would seem like an infinitely distant world to you. He was once called Alpha and also Elohim. The Laws of Hell is another form of the Laws of Salvation. Did you read this book or not? You will soon be asked at the entrance to another world. Ryo Okawa, Master and CEO of Happy Science Group, November 2022.
Thank you, John. Master Okawa says in the last part of the preface that the Laws of Hell is another form of the Laws of Salvation. However, this book is not based on Christian philosophy. Rather, it is based on the Buddhist principles. In this sense, we can say that this book is a book of enlightenment to avoid going to hell. So how about we read out the chapters, John? Could you read out from the table of contents?
Yes. So there are 5 chapters in this book. Chapter 1, Introduction to Hell, teaching modern people about hell. Chapter 2, The Laws of Hell, the judgment by Yama that awaits you after death. Chapter 3, Curses, Spells, and Possession, how to control your mind so you do not fall to hell. Chapter 4, The Fight Against Devils, revealing the reality of devils and their tactics. Chapter 5, A Message from Savior, saving the earth from crisis.
Thank you. Wow, it's full of interesting topics which no one really knows about or has ever talked about in this much detail. So in today's program, we would like to discuss mainly about earthbound spirits. On page 71 from chapter 1, there is a subsection called People who believe in materialism often end up becoming an earthbound spirit. So allow me to read the first part. Introduction to Hell. People who believe in materialism often end up becoming earthbound spirits. Many of you might think, when people die, they leave this world and go to a completely different space, either heaven or hell. But today, materialistic and scientific thinking is widely prevalent, and the education system teaches this, so a tremendous number of people believe that the other world does not exist. For those who do not believe in the other world, there is neither hell or heaven. That is why they do not have any place to go after they die.
Because they have nowhere to go, this third-dimensional world, known as the phenomenal world, is the only place they can reside. They can neither recognize hell nor heaven, so they continue to stay in this world. These souls believe they are still living in this third-dimensional world. They think, people just can't hear my voice. I don't know why, but I can pass through walls. For some reason, I don't seem to bump into people but pass through them. Or, I'm now in a mysterious world, but I'm probably ill or hallucinating. There are many such souls, and their number is increasing tremendously.
Wow, what a mess of a world. Yeah, so there's many earthbound spirits. Any comment about this?
I think a lot of the time the earthbound spirits are people who've committed suicide, maybe even primarily. Since, when you're committing suicide, your physical body is dying, but you were meant to be living a certain lifespan. So the soul is still going to have to live out the lifespan in this world in some form until the point of their natural death that was preordained for them. So since they aren't able to perceive, let alone go to either heaven or hell, they're just going to roam around this world and often around the location where they committed suicide. And then what the problem with that is that they will often possess people in those areas. And if there's a sensitive person who goes to such an area, then those spirits can more easily possess them, and then that's why there's often certain locations with a lot of recurrent suicides, whether certain bridges
or something like that.
Yeah, and I think even like certain situations, like with bullying, there's been a lot of adolescents, young kids, and I feel like there's almost a sympathetic vibration where there's some pattern causing all of these kids to bully, certain people, and then that kid is by themselves, and then they come under possession by one of these wandering spirits.
Yeah, definitely. And for people who are curious or who are just getting started in spiritual things, or do ghosts exist or not, basically a ghost is an earthbound spirit, plain and simple. That's what you're seeing, if you can see. So these souls don't know that they're dead, in other words, or they've died prematurely, or they have no idea, as this book explains, what awaits them after death. And like the different levels and sections of hell is just not a one for all. There's many very detailed areas of hell that you can fall into. And yeah, this book is so important because it teaches you the mindset of how not to fall to hell, but also, even if you don't kill anybody, it doesn't have to be that crazy of a sin. Just like a wrong thought. A lot of wrong thoughts can lead you to hell. So it's very important to be aware of your thoughts and aware of your soul, because it continues to exist after you die. And yeah, it's a very unfortunate thing. Basically, suicide is not the answer. It's not worth it. And they have nothing, these souls have nothing to do, basically. And all they can do is possess other like-minded people, like you said. These people had suicidal thoughts, so that attracts more spirits that have done it. That's why you're like, yeah, maybe I should, and you feel more motivated to kill yourself or even kill others. So yeah, we have to be careful of the poisons of the mind, which is greed, anger, and foolishness. And when we are possessed, a good thing to know is that our negative mind or negative tendencies are greatly amplified. So try to be aware of whether you're being possessed or not. Are these your own thoughts or not? Or is it someone who is possessing you? Master laments that more and more people are becoming earthbound spirits nowadays, and that's why we really want as many people as possible to read the laws of hell and educate themselves on the proper knowledge of spiritual truth. Knowledge is power, especially in this case, and knowing the truth alleviates unnecessary fears and worries. So in the end, you won't have to commit suicide because there's always something you can do in your situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the bottom line is that this world and the world beyond are governed by the universal law, which is the laws of cause and effect, or the laws of same wavelengths, or laws of attraction. It's interesting, before when you had mentioned how the negative vibrations are amplified while you're under possession, I think what came to mind was like literally the way sound can be amplified and how that can broadcast in a way to those sympathetic spirits and draws it and creates, more of a propensity for suicide, homicide, whatever the case may be. I mean, there's a lot of violence and suicidal behaviors in the world right now, and you can see how spiritually, even though we've become so kind of diffuse from that as a society, it doesn't negate these spiritual realities that are happening.
Yeah, and like I always like to keep things very simple so that I can understand and also like apply it practically in my life. But I always try to remember that I'm a magnet and we're all magnets. And so what am I attracting at this moment? Because at all times, like a magnet doesn't turn on or off. It's on.
Right.
There is no on and off switch. So you are constantly attracting something. So what is it? And the truth is you have the power to decide. Not only, you're not left to the universe, but you have to decide what you're going to attract, and you get to choose. So since you have that power, which is that power that God gave you, that free will, you can totally manifest your own life to any which way. So there's absolute responsibility and no blaming your environment. You are a magnet.
I love that. That's a powerful analogy.
Yeah, it really helps me because I'm like, okay, I would really love to blame someone right now because a lot of things happen in life, but there is a peace in control, right? Like during the pandemic or during situations when you don't know what to do or you don't know what tomorrow brings, at least you know that you are in control of your own mind and you get to decide how you feel about things. So I really, during that pandemic especially, it was a time where I really thought about how important controlling the mind was and what a blessing it is to have it, and what terrible waste of life if you don't. And so, yeah, there is so much peace in control. That's what I felt.
Yeah.
So how about you, John? What about, after reading the book, are there any parts of this book that stood out to you the most?
Yeah, there were many things that stood out. I really appreciated the very elaborate explanation of what can be expected after dying during the judgment process, and the various types of hells, and also the fact that there is something very merciful in the notion that even though, like, not only are we being given this book, which is teaching us how to take steps by our own volition to prevent ourselves from going to hell, but even if we don't heed this advice, or if we don't read this book, there's still an eventual way out. So it's not like certain religions teach that once you're there, and that's it forever. And it's not that, like, we should be like, oh, who cares? It's just, it's like a prison sentence. But that, even so, there's still this really beautiful compassion in that. And even for a person who doesn't vibrate to a heavenly wavelength and does go to hell, even that is like a form of love and compassion, because it's giving them what they need to heal their soul in that process. And so, yeah, I just thought that was really beautiful. But the guidance of how not to go to hell is also wonderful. And I think something that was very significant to me was the emphasis on how the ethics of and laws of this world are not necessarily going to at all be attuned with the ethics and laws of the heavenly worlds, and just how different they can be.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people are overtaken by revenge and justice, and I won't rest until justice is served, or that's not fair. But like, this book will really help you rest assured that nothing goes unseen, and anyone who lives as though God does not exist or that no one is watching is bound to be very surprised once they get to the other side, because everything is addressed. Every thought that you had, not even just the action, but the thought that you had, is recorded and examined. So it's very good to know right now. And it does mention, like, 10 years in this world is like tenfold in the next. So it's like the spiritual investment to read these books and to do spiritual training and religious seeking and understanding and studying is so much of, there's no better word than investment for your soul.
Yeah, it's like a retirement program.
Yeah, it really is. And the one thing that you can actually bring with you when you die, so everything else you can't.
Right.
So it's like a high yield investment.
Very.
Yeah, very
compound
beneficial.
interest.
Yeah, very compounded. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, jokes aside, you want to read this book to save your life. Literally, it's a form of salvation. And, yeah, I just thought, like, everyone who's in jail or in the hospital or all these very finite places, seemingly finite places, they really need a copy of this book. Yeah. The Master did mention he wants every single person to read this book. And the more you read it, the more you know why. Yes. So, well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Next month, we will discuss about the 3 poisons of the mind, which are a common cause of going to hell, and why we can still go to hell without committing actual crimes.
The Laws of Hell is available at Barnes & Noble and will be available on Amazon.com starting May 1st.
Yes, we hope you will get this book and learn about the criteria of good and evil and what we can do to avoid going to hell. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Thank you.